Will you all able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
So today the topic is HTTP. What is HTTP? Any idea? What is HTTP? Preeti? Why do we need HTTP? Today is day 2 session. Nitin, Preeti, can you answer what is HTTP?
It is a transfer protocol.
Okay.
With
The first point, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is used to transfer data from client to web server or web server to client. Right? Without this HTTP protocol, I can't able to transfer data. To transfer any data, I have to use HTTP protocol. Okay. When I'm transferring data in the HTTP protocol, the main class in ASP.NET is HTTP context. HTTP context is a class which holds both HTTP request and HTTP response object. Got my point? So HTTP context is a class which will hold both HTTP request and response object. How are you going to determine in ASP.NET MVC? Yesterday's code I will open. So you all understand what is launch setting and everything for yesterday's class, right? The today's classes, when you run a program in IAS or wherever, okay, under IAS, if you run a program, the client browser has two information. One is HTTP response, another one is HTTP request. I'll show you where that response and request comes. This is the response which I received as an HTML. If you go and see view source, under a network, if you refresh, you see there is a local host. Will you be able to see a local host or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
See, I am clearing. Clear, catch everything. Okay. Now, when you refresh, you are getting a local host. When you click on that, you see there is a HTTP request and response object. You see there is an HTTP request and response object. In that request and response object, you see there is an URL. You see there is a URL. You see a URL. This is my URL. And what is the method? Get. What is the code? If the page is run successfully, you will get 200 as a status code. Or you got my point? So this is how the HTTP request and response will comes into picture. Any idea? Any questions? And in the header, you will see general tab, you see response header, you see request header. Now we are going to talk about response header. In the response header, you have a content type as text plain. You have from which server this particular request has been processed. Now, if I go back, if I run through normal kernel server, the response object will give server as kernel. Hey, Pranit. Now you go to network. I want to hide this. You see here, when you refresh, you get a name. You get a name or not? When you click on this, you will get a header. In the response, just give me 2 minutes. In the response, you see from which server it is executed. From which server it is executed. Will you able to see this? Priti? Nitin? Priti?
Kestrel.
It has come from Kestrel server. And what is the type of content the response is generated? Plain text. This is how the raw data will be added. If you see here, this is how your request and response object will be created. Now you see here, the response is successful with the status code 200. Based on the status code, this is your status information. Or you got my point? And then the type of content is text plain. And which server it is processing, we can have. Now, to handle these kind of headers, how to do it in ASP.NET MVC code? Let's see that. Now here, app.run, okay, in which you will use await. Async is a keyword in which you will use a context called HTTP context. HTTP context as a class. In this context, you have to use a lambda expression. You have to use a lambda expression. Here, you are writing your own response header saying that context dot response dot status code equal to 401 or 404. What will happen? The request what I received as successful will be replaced with my response status code. You see here. See, the response is created. Now, if you go and see the inspect element, go to network. If you refresh, 404, not found exception. It is created or not? Hello? Nitin and Preeti. Okay, 404 has been exception, not found. It means that if you click on it, you go to the raw header, response header, you see it is returning HTTP with the 404, with the not found from the server called Kestrel. All these things will be handled by C#. You can generate any type of status code. You can generate any type of status code as a response. Or you got my point? So now you see here, this response is a HTTP response, which are derived from a class called HTTP context. You see here, encapsulate all HTTP specific individual about an individual HTTP request. Okay, and then this is the one. HTTP request is an object which are received from the response. Get the request object, get the response object. Now you see what are all the things are available in request object. In the request object, you will have method name, you will have schema name, you will have host name, you will have path name, you will have path, you will have query string. All these are comes into the request object. Now if I go back into the response object, you see there is a connection info, socket info, lot of things are handled with the session. Or you got my point? So whenever you make a request from client to browse, client to server, the client will send an HTTP context, in which HTTP context, the server is going to create HTTP request and response object. You all clear my point? Everybody clear my point? Please unmute and talk.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, sir, context dot response dot content type. I can say text/HTML. You see, the HTML will be added in the header. What will added in the header? HTML. Excuse me. Class. It's a classroom. Now you see here in the network, when I refresh, I got a localhost 404, document not found. Under the document not found, in the request header, you see HTTP 404 not found. And then the content type which I created as text.html, it is created where this request, actually the main request will be overridden by these words. I can pass my status code, I can pass my content type, everything I can do with the help of context. Okay, so tomorrow if somebody comes and asks you, sir, I want to create a request, I want to create my own response object, you can generate the response object based on this. Clear my point? And you can also write based on the context. For example, if 1 equal to 0, I can write within this code saying that this context will be not successful. And the else part, you can write context dot response dot status code equal to 200. No need plus. Now, if you build the project, run the project, refresh, you see here, 100 is coming, 200 is coming. 200 is coming or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If at all, if it is equal to 1, you can write a logic in the context itself. It will generate 404. You see here there is a localhost. Like that, you can have response object, you can have general object. In the general, what happened? What is your request method? What is your local host? What is your status code? What is your remote address, which is equal to port number? See, you have a local host, you have a port number, you have 404 found. All these things will be created with the help of ASP.NET MVC. You can generate your own request and response object. Sir, this is fine. I want to know my header. What type of header request I'm getting? So I'm going to create context dot request dot path. Okay, I'm going to get a string of path. So here I'm going to use string path equal to. I'm going to give string path equal to. When I say path, this local host path, you see here, I'm generating a request. I can put here request path is request path is I can say path. Now you see here, I am writing a path. What is my path here? Request path is slash or not? Because after localhost, you will have a slash. That is the reason it is giving. And sir, I want to get the method name of the request. What is the method name? String method name context dot request dot method name. So I can clearly say here, I can put a br tag inside slash br, which is a break tag. Don't worry much. And then write a context, one more context, copy, paste, paste. I can put break here. can use a BR tag. Here I can say method name is and I can put here method dot toString. So I'm passing my method name. Now you see, what is the method we saw? It's a get method. You see here, there is a get method. Sir, how are you determining it is a get method? Inspect, go to network, refresh the request, click on this. Now go back to your request, click on raw, where you see there is a get method. Will you all able to see the get method? Priti,
Yes, sir.
you are getting a get method and this is your slash. Slash means path of it. Or you got my point? So in the request object, what all things you can get? While sending response from ASP.NET MVC core, HTTP response will be built by server. HTTP response will be built by server. What are all the response we can create? The response is type of protocol. Type of protocol. What is your type of protocol? HTTP 1.1. This is your version. You see here. Where is my browser? Click this. You see in the response header, HTTP/1.1. You got it or not? HTTP/1.1. That is one value. Another value, status code of the request. Status code of the response. Okay, which could be 404. There are a lot of status codes. You have 100, you have 101, you have 200, which is a success message, and you have 301, 302, 305. These are all the codes, and 401, 402, 403, 404. These are all the different type of status codes. You can go and create each and every status code and see the response. Okay. So these are all the status codes. The response of the particular server will send back to your browser. Or you got my point? So these are all the response I can generate from the ASP.NET server. Okay. The third one is the response should has a content type. Response as a content type. Content hyphen type, which is basically text/HTML or plain text. You can generate a plain text. Or you got my point? On top of that, there are few other response you can generate. And when this request will be processed, date of processing the request, date of processing the request. You should carefully understand. These are all the things you can learn in the HTTP, both request and response object. This is more important ongoing classes. If you are not able to understand this, you cannot able to continue with MVC. Okay. And what is the type of server? The type of server where request will be processed. Where request will be processed. Type of server where request will be processed. When I say type of server means What are all the type of servers yesterday we learned? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me? What are all the type of servers we have in ASP.NET Core? Preeti and Nitin.
Yes.
Kernel, IIS is a reverse proxy server, and Apache is a reverse proxy server, and Nginx is another server. So whenever a process is requesting, you can understand what type of server we are processing the request. Clear my point? Preeti?
Yes, sir.
Pranit? Long back I am seeing you, Pranit.
Sorry.
What
Yesterday
happened?
only I have reached to Hyderabad, sir.
Come again?
Yesterday night only I have reached to Hyderabad, sir.
Okay, tomorrow you are coming, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm coming, sir.
Okay. If you are coming, you come to main office, SAP Street main office. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So now coming back, request object. Request object. The request object derived from HTTP context class. Request object derived from HTTP context class, which belongs as one of the property under HTTP context. Similar way the response also. HTTP response also. Or you got my point? So how to get a request? What are all the requests I can get? In the request, I can get path of the request. Which means URL, Unified Resource Locator. Okay. And second thing is method name of the request. Which is called as method name. What are all the methods we have in ASP.NET MVC? Number 1, get method. Number 2, post method. Number 3, update method. Number 3, delete method. Sorry, instead of update, you can put method. See, any request and response you are sending from client to browser, client to server, or server to client, there are 4 methods in the bin. One is get method. Get method is used to get the information from the server. Post method. Whenever you want to post data to the server, you have to call it as a post method. If there is a small modification or change happened in that, you have to use put method. The fourth one is delete method. If you want to delete a particular record or something, you have to use a delete method. These are all called as basic methods which are available in ASP.NET. Everybody clear?
Yes, sir.
See, if you are clear, say yes. If you are not clear, say no. If you are being idle, I don't know whether you are understand or not. Guys, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Now, coming back. Sir, I want to pass a URL along with query string. I'll tell you. See, I got a URL, right? This is my URL. In this URL, I have to pass ID equal to 1. I have to pass ID equal to 1, enter. This is called as query string of the URL. Anything you see here in the URL, question mark post which if you have ID equal to 1, which is called as query string attribute. In the request object, you can receive a query string. Now, how to handle that query string? Now here, I write a code if context dot request dot. This is the last topic I'm teaching today. Request dot query collection of ID. If it is present, not equal to null. Dot to string. Okay. Context dot request dot query of ID not dot to string not equal to string dot empty. Not equal to string dot empty. What is the purpose of string dot empty? You are checking whether the string is null or not. If it is not null, I'm using a string ID is equal to context dot. I'm going to get that value. I am going to get that value. Context dot that's it. Or you got my point. And then 1 second. Just a minute. 10:45. ఏమైంది మరి ఎప్పుడు వస్తావు 11 కల్లా వస్తావా నేను మళ్ళీ 12కి వెళ్ళిపోతాను సరే తొందరగా so here whatever the ID I received I will simply say query string value is I'll simply say query string value is here ID dot post. Now build the project. ID does not exist. Okay, I'll do one thing. Copy. I put here equal to string dot empty. And then I'm using the string here. And then I'm using the same ID here. Okay, now if you go and run the kernel server, you see the query string value is right now null. But if you pass here question mark ID equal to 5, enter, you got the 5 value here. Priti, you got the 5 value?
Yes, sir.
So this is how you are going to catch the request. If I use to concatenate 2 or 3 values, name equal to Narendra. Enter also, you will get only 5. I need to catch Narendra also means what I need to do? Simply go here, string name equal to string dot empty. String dot empty. Right. Again, you need to write a if condition. What is your if condition? You have to say in the query string name, here you have to say name value. You can catch the query string value from the context because this HTTP context holding the entire request object. Now, here you go and write, copy, paste, say query string name value is. Here you have to say query string ID value is. You have to say ID values. See, I made a small change. I have to give a space here. I have to give a space here, so that you can understand the value properly. Now, run the server. You see, the query string ID value is null, query string name value is null. Now I am passing only name. Name equal to Narendra. You see, the name value I got. Whereas ID equal to 5 ampersand. The last one it is returning. Why? It's a wrong. This is the reason. This is also wrong. I have to use name variable. Here, I'm passing ID equal to 5. Enter. See, the query string ID value I got. Name value is null because I'm not passing any query string value here. Am I right or wrong? Did I passing any query string value? Come on, guys.
No, sir, not possible.
So if I pass another query string value with ampersand, name equal to ampersand name equal to Narendra. When you click enter, you see Narendra is coming. I got a query string ID value. I got a query string name value. You got my point? See, I created a response. I created a request. I created a method name. I created a query string value. Everything I got from the HTTP context class. Everything I got from the which class? Which class I got? So here in the request object, you can have query string value. Query string value. Okay. URL concatenated with query string value. URL concatenated with query string value. You got my point? So what is the topic today we learned? We learned about what is HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is used to transfer data from client to web server to client. How this HTTP will be work? For that, we have a class called HTTP context in ASP.NET MVC, which holds both request and response object. While sending response from ASP.NET MVC core, HTTP response will be built by the web server. HTTP response will be built by the web server. What are all the type of protocol we are using? HTTP 1.1, status code, content type, data processing the request, type of server, everything you can process. Similar way, the request object is also derived from HTTP context class, which belongs as one of the property under HTTP context. How do I prove that? How do I prove that? You go to HTTP context, go to definition. Under HTTP context, outlining collapse. You see, there is an HTTP request and response object in the context class. It is having or not?
Yes, sir. Having.
So now if you go to the request object, now you have to go and make outlining. You have method name. Under the context, you have a method name. You have host name. You have path. You have query string object. And you have query. Query is nothing but a query string collection. Query is nothing but a query string collection. You see. All the query strings will be added as a collection here. Whenever you are getting a key value pair, the query string collection will be comes back. So this is how it will work. Anybody have any questions? Now you see here. Nitin, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
See, where this HTTP query collection comes from the ASP.NET core.http. Now you see where this context is coming derived from. This is context is derived from Microsoft.ASP.NET core namespace. You have to make this. HTTP context class comes under a namespace called Microsoft ASP.NET core.http. HTTP context class comes under a namespace called Microsoft.ASP.NET core.http. Or you got my point? So this is how ASP.NET core works. Do you have any other questions? Anybody have any questions? Any questions, ma? Nitin?
No, sir.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Tomorrow, we can go and talk about middleware. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about middleware in ASP.NET core. Okay? Middleware in ASP.NET core. Today, we talk about what is HTTP context, what is HTTP, under which what is HTTP context, under a context, what is a request class, and another a response object. We talk about all the three. Now, today we are going to talk about middleware in ASP.NET core. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
And recordings are already